Why do all my friendships feel one-sided? Let's read the letter and then I'll give my advice in real time. Hello, Hayes. I'm at a point in my life where none of my friendships are reciprocal. I have people who will talk to me or spend time with me if I reach out to them first, but it's always me initiating. And if I try to pull back and wait for them to reach out, they don't do it and we'll never see each other again. This has been going on for years. Some are friends who used to reach out but stopped doing so. I put myself out there and make new initial friends, but it always seems to turn into the same dynamic. I enjoy spending time alone, but too much time takes a toll on my mental health. I've brought this up in therapy in the past, but never got any useful insights. Do you have any advice on how to build friendships where I feel prioritized? Is there any way to bring this up with my current friends? Do you have thoughts on how to sit with my discomfort and disappointment with this situation? Yours, never the priority. You know, to me, the most important part of this question, the heart of this question of like, my friendships feel one-sided, nothing is reciprocal, how do I feel the priority? How do I become the priority to other people? The most important part of this is figuring out like, what would feeling like a priority mean to you? What exactly are you looking for? Or another way to say it is, what would a reciprocal relationship look like to you in your imagination? And the tricky part is, or the puzzle here is that you cannot use they initiate plans as your answer. Because the truth of the matter, I think, is that even if all of your friends texted you first sometimes, I think you would still feel this way. I think you would still feel like not the priority. I don't think you'd feel considered because to me, a friendship that truly is reciprocal in the way that I define it, which I'll define it for you in a moment, we'll see if we can come to some shared definition. In friendships that feel reciprocal, where I feel cared for, I am not keeping tabs on who is texting who first and who's making plans first, because there's something deeper there that I can hold on to that gives me confidence in the relationship. I think that once you get to the point in any relationship, friend, lover, whatever, where your brain is like keeping track of who does what, that's typically a sign that something has gone wrong. The friendship is not reciprocal, to your point, and maybe that relationship like needs to be re-examined, ended. One of those two things. Expectations need to be reevaluated, or maybe the friendship needs to you need to say goodbye to the friendship. Where you seem to be is at the point where like you're noticing this in your friends, yet they're still in your life. You're ready to make a change. But I think that the change is going to come with you looking inward, especially if this is a pattern. You said that this has been going on for a few years. All of your friendships seem to turn out this way. Whenever we see patterns in our life, in our relationships, I think it's so useful to look at ourselves. And to be clear, like looking at ourselves, sometimes when I have to look inwards at myself, at my own behavior, my initial reaction can be very defensive. And only certain people I only take it well from certain people in my life when they help me look inwards to see my own behavior. Like we have to have a certain type of relationship in order to. You have to have a trusting relationship with someone for them to tell you to look inwards and for you to hear it. But my hope is that we can have that relationship together. You writing to me, that's one of the assumptions that I bring to these letter writing exchanges, that we have that dynamic. And I think I want you to look inwards, not because there's something wrong with you, or because you're pushing people away, or because you're intense or you're too much, but because you are a constant in the equation. And that's something that you have control over. We don't have control over whether people text you back, whether people like you, whether people think you're funny, whatever, but we do have control over what we bring to the equation. And I think one thing that you can do right now is to really think about, what does reciprocity look like? What would feeling like a priority be? So let's actually define reciprocity. I'm not going to use whatever definition of the word that it actually is, but the way I've heard the word used most in this context of friendship, or the way I hear people use it most in the letters they send to me, is like, it's often used in the context of like who initiates what first, and who plans what, who does what. It's used as this letter writer is. But reciprocity, I think we could benefit from thinking about it in a different way, in a more personal way, and kind of coming up with your own personal definition of it. For me, reciprocity in friendship means that I feel like, in any relationship actually, that I feel like the other person sees me and cares for me in a way that makes me feel seen. I just used seen twice, dummy. Cares for me, they make me feel seen. And I make them feel seen. We both see each other for who we truly are, and we show up for each other as best we can. Now, reciprocity doesn't mean that they do for me exactly what I do for them in the literal sense or in the figurative, like emotional sense. Reciprocity doesn't mean that they're a perfect friend 100% of the time. It doesn't mean they make mistakes. They have their own stuff going on sometimes where they can't or they don't show up for me in the way they did maybe 3 months ago or 6 months ago when things were different. Reciprocity is like looking at the friendship as a whole and trying to capture the feeling of the friendship as a whole. You get there, you build those types of friendships over long periods of time, I think, or sometimes not long, but over getting lots and lots of reps of building trust. So when I think back at a time in my life where I struggled more with friendship or where friendship challenges were like more prominent, which was really like kind of my youth into maybe my early 20s, I think by the time I was like 24, I had kind of shut the door on some friendship challenges, not because I am, holier than thou and have it all figured out, but I kind of shifted my attention. Like new problems replaced it. And I do think that that is also part of life sometimes is like, we all will have social interpersonal dynamics that will like plague us in some ways. And we only have room for so much. And while I said goodbye to friendship challenges, in some ways, through deliberate effort, like through not caring very much about having a big friend group, through being really rigorous about like who I allow in and who I trust. I don't know. Just new problems entered my life, work problems, career stress, other types of interpersonal social issues, like friendship problems just kind of went lower on my list. But again, that doesn't mean that I think I am impervious to them or an expert in them. It just, I don't know. We all can only have so much on our plate. You know how there's like those graphs of here's how you can split your time. And, you have to decide where you want to put your time to. I think the same applies to like our stressors. Like we can only stress out or we can only have so many things consuming us. Friendship for me just kind of went to the bottom. But where was I going with that? I don't think even when I had friendship challenges, reciprocity was like a word that was coming top of mind. I wouldn't have been like, wow, this friendship sucks because it's not reciprocal. But what I would have said is like, this friendship kind of sucks because they make me feel bad about myself, or I feel like they don't really understand me, or I feel like I'm trying so hard for them to like me and they just aren't. I think getting more specific about what we mean, both in what we're looking for in like reciprocity and in relationships, what would that feel like for us? But also like, let's get really specific in what it doesn't feel like. Like, what are the feelings here? What are the things we do that we don't like? And the reason I urge you to like not just pick, well, they never text me first, is because I think that's like a symptom of a larger problem. It doesn't represent the larger problem. And if you're listening, you can replace that with whatever you're getting hung up on in your friendship. Like if you had to describe the reciprocity issue broader without using those words that first come to mind, like they don't text me first, how would you describe it? I think that's the first way that you can start to take some responsibility for your role in this. Like you need to get specific. And I guess the other thing I'll say about examining our role and taking some responsibility, you wrote, do you have any advice on how to build friendships where I feel more prioritized? Listen, I think that friendships, it's hard because on one hand, if you've never felt prioritized, of course you're going to want to feel prioritized. But friendship is like I do think friendship requires selflessness, the kind of friendship that I think you're looking for, the kind of friendships that I feel really good in. They require selflessness. And when two people can both come together and show selflessness at sometimes, a lot of the time, I don't know. I think that's where true trust and reciprocity is built. So you might especially if this is a pattern, you might want to try to refocus your brain for people who deserve it, for people who have earned your trust. And maybe you'll have to take a little bit of risk at first to kind of suss somebody out. It's like, what will make them feel prioritized? And we hope that by helping other people feel prioritized in ways that feel good for you, right? You don't want to stretch yourself too far out of your limits or do things that make you feel like a doormat or get taken advantage of. You have to consider other people. Friendship is about considering others and finding the right people who will also consider you. But if we walk around in any of our relationships thinking that we are the most important and our feelings are the most important, I think it's like, I think people can smell that. They can sniff it. And even if they can't necessarily verbalize it or identify it, it's like an aura that we give off. Friendship is about connection. It's about wanting to be seen, but you have to remember it's also about seeing others. And when I say that, I'm not necessarily speaking directly to you, never the priority, because I know that right now you're sitting in pain. It hurts that right now none of your relationships feel mutually beneficial. Like you don't feel seen in them. What else do I want to say? I think that as soon as you start doing those types of tests, like I'm not going to text them and let's see what happens, that to me is a point. Is it a point of no return? It's a point. We've reached a manipulation point. We've reached a game. I never believed in games in like romantic relationships, and I don't believe in games in friendship. I don't believe in games in any relationship. It doesn't serve anybody. I think that once you get there, let's just see what happens if I never text them again. That's a sign maybe that this friendship, you're not bringing good energy to this friendship and they're not bringing it back. Now, there is a real difference. There's a real difference between I'm not going to text them just to see if they never text me back and they disappear from my life. And I'm not going to text them right now because they seem like they have a lot going on. So I'm just going to give some space and we'll circle back soon. There's a real difference between, even though the action is the same, the action of like, I'm not going to text because it's not feeling good. That's consistent between the two approaches, but the attitude is so different. One is like so insecure and very gamey and a little manipulative and just very like, woe is me. And the other is much more rooted in confidence. It's giving the other person the benefit of the doubt. And not everyone will always deserve the benefit of the doubt. That is true. But for our own, like, for yourself, it serves you and the energy you give off and the way you feel about yourself to intentionally not take things so personally. I feel like I've talked about that before. Like something I'm always trying to do with myself when I take things personally too, because of course I fucking do, is to be like, okay, how could I take this a little bit less personally? Like 5% less personally. What would that sound like? What would I do in this situation? What would I say? How would I feel if I could take this a little less personally? And then I'll identify that. And that might be like, okay, they haven't been the first one to reach out in a while. It could be because the version of me that's taken that really personally might think it's because they don't care about my friendship, they don't like me, they never think of me. But the less personal way to interpret that might be, they've got a lot going on right now. They've got a lot going on right now. And I know that they care about our relationship, but texting me and making plans right now with anyone is not the priority. And that's okay. And I'm going to give it a little space. It's still rooted in reality. It still leaves space for my feelings to be hurt, but it's not so fucking personal. I don't know. It's not like throwing up a flaming flag. And I think that whenever you can try to do that, it's going to serve you. Not only is it going to help your relationships, but it's going to help the way you feel about yourself. And I think that taking things less personally is a choice. Like it's a muscle that we build. And then over time, it starts to happen more naturally. But it is something that you have to practice. And I don't think it just happens that you like stop taking things so personally. I think we build that muscle through repeated action, just like I said. And I think these friendship situations are a perfect time when you can do that. Of course, spending too much time alone hurts your mental health. Like alone time is good and healthy and fun and wonderful. And I know different people among us like have different thresholds to what feels good being alone. But of course, like if overall you are feeling lonely and community is not something that you're thriving in right now, too much of it's going to suck. That makes complete sense. I don't think there's too much to analyze there. I'm curious what types of like insights on that you've been looking for in therapy. Speaking of never getting any useful insights in therapy, I made an episode about is therapy making us selfish a few months back. Go check that out. We talk a lot about how I think therapy works best, and I answered a bunch of your questions about therapy. But I will say, I get the most useful insights in therapy when there is a balance of helping me process my emotions, helping me identify the emotions I'm feeling, helping me with some tools to better deal with them, but also holding me accountable for when I am getting in my own way. If you don't feel like a therapist is like holding you accountable a good chunk of the time, well, one, you might not be ready for therapy. Like there might be a reason they're not doing that. Maybe you're not hearing it, or maybe you're getting defensive, and a good therapist will be able to identify that with you and walk through it. Or maybe you don't have a therapist who's very good at that. When I talk with a lot of people, like it's just become so clear to me that, of course, just like any profession, like not all therapists are the same. But I don't think that in every session you're going to be getting like mind-blowing insights that are going to change the way you think forever. But like, I don't know. The best insights for me have come from when my therapist is helping me see things about myself that I might not have been able to articulate, or maybe I wouldn't notice, or helping me point out patterns. And it's just I just wanted to address that. I just wanted to address that little part. So, is there any way to bring this up with current friends? Well, I think it depends. I'm not sure if I would bring up with listen, my personal tendency for like, should I bring this up or not with someone? For me, sometimes there are relationships where I believe that's like, what's the point? Like, I already know that we are not compatible. Like, we are already not simpatico. Like, this is not gonna, no. What's the point in bringing it up? The actual step that needs to be taken now is I need to either readjust my expectations of you and see if there's still value in here within those readjusted expectations, or like, I accept you for who you are. I accept and appreciate what our friendship was, but I kind of let it go. I would not bring this up with someone unless I felt in other ways that our friendship was reciprocal. Like maybe if there was a specific incident that came up, like a friend missed my let's see, baby shower. If a friend couldn't attend my baby shower and then never acknowledged it, or they backed out last minute, I can't even really imagine. It's like I have so few people in my life who I would even want to be at a potential baby shower that I can't really imagine them like backing out last minute without such a valid reason, that I can't imagine that I would get upset because the relationship is built on such trust. But I guess, anyway, I think with people who I love and adore and feel like this relationship really means something to me, then I could see myself addressing a specific situation. Like, hey, I want to talk about this thing that happened last week. It made me feel kind of shitty when this happened. Like, what was going on for you? I want to make sure that this doesn't become a roadblock, and also understand, like, if I'm not seeing things clearly, or I just wanted to talk about it. I would maybe say something like that about a specific situation. What I probably wouldn't do is like, hey, our friendship the last 2 years has felt so one-sided. Can you reach out to me more? I wouldn't do that, because to me, that relationship is like, I don't think that relationship would be worth it to me. I'm thinking about how I could be wrong. Like, what are some ways that I could be wrong? Maybe if you have felt like a relationship over the last several years in your life has become more one-sided, you could frame it as like, I miss getting to spend time with you more. I miss when, I don't know. I personally can't see myself doing that, because to me, it's like, if years have gone by and this person has shown me the way that they're able to show up as a friend for me, it's kind of on me for not being able to recognize that, accept it, or move on. Now, I feel that way about people who would be more casual friends. And I think maybe the crux of this problem is like, sometimes I think that once the friendship starts to really feel unreciprocal in lots of ways, to me, that is the sign that the friendship has shifted. They've gone from a North Star bestie maybe to something else. And I guess I see it as like my responsibility to identify that. And it's not always worth bringing up. It's not always necessary to bring up. Sometimes it hurts the friendship to bring it up, and you actually, sometimes it can be selfish to just, if someone's going through something or they're in a different stage of life and you just like constantly are thinking about and wanting to address that they're not able to show up for you in the way they used to. I don't know. I think that what we owe each other as humans is like grace and space to change, space to make mistakes. I'm not sure. I'm not really articulating myself super clearly here on the should I confront it or not front, because I think my feelings about it are kind of complicated. I believe in addressing it with very close friends, addressing specific things. I also believe in giving people grace to make mistakes. I don't believe in confronting people who aren't really our good friends and who haven't shown us that they're there for us. Like, I don't think you need to talk to them about the fact that they're not a good friends to you, because they've already shown you. And you need to decide whether there's anything there for you. Is there anything here that I want to be a part of or not? And then it's time for you to go. You know, I'm thinking more now about why most of my friendships now, I would say, generally feel reciprocal. And I think it's because I have fewer of them. Like, I could probably count on one hand. I'm not going to actually do it. That's just a guess. The friendships that I truly feel are like deeply my people, like care for me with the same level that I care about them, even though we might be different. It's probably one hand. And then everybody else, people who I still love and know they like me and all of that, my expectations are just lower. I'm not expecting that same level of like being seen from those inner circle of friends. And I feel like that's also key. Like, not every friendship you're going to have is going to feel truly reciprocal and like that deep. And I've become okay with that because I've seen I noticed how that played out in my life when I was younger and I was a part of big friend groups, and I never felt seen because I was wanting to be seen by everybody. And when you're surrounded by so many people, I don't know, sometimes the gap can feel larger. But once I started really just having some like one-on-one smaller friendships, I started to feel better in those friendships. I started to feel like these are really reciprocal. They do really see me in the way I want to be seen. But maybe that's something to consider too. Like, what is the structure of your friendships? What's the nature of your friendships? Are you expecting everyone to be this for you? Because I have some people who I think are close friends where I don't think it's always reciprocal. And I think I said that before, but like reciprocal friendships aren't always reciprocal in the sense of equal. Friends who just had a baby might not be as present as they were before, and that's okay. Or I don't know why that's the example. That's such an obvious example that just came to mind. But it's just reciprocity doesn't mean equal all the time. And I think it's easier to have those types of friendships when there's fewer of them, for me at least. Never the priority, I do also want you to know that you're not alone. I asked for the next part of this episode, I'm going to go through a bunch of rapid fire questions, and people also sent in some slightly longer messages in my DMs that I'll read. You're not alone here. This is very much a feeling among lots and lots and lots of people. So we're going to get into some more specifics now. But thank you for writing. I hope there was something in there that's useful for you. If you're not planning on listening to the next episode, but you liked this, we have new episodes of Hello Haze every Tuesday. Thanks so much for being here. And now let's move on to the rapid fire questions. Okay, so the first question that I'm going to answer actually wasn't in my DMs, but Logan made a video on TikTok and tagged me to weigh in. Let's see if I can play it for you.
Ask you to hang out and you say no for whatever reason, like you're busy, you got something going on, you got a good reason, whatever, you can't, that's fine. Okay, I might try one more time, like a couple weeks later, like, hey, you want to hang out now? If you say no twice, you now need to be the initiator on the third time. Okay,
Okay, I agree with that generally, but I agree with it loosely, I should say. I agree with it loosely. I, as a friend, do always try to be aware of how often I'm saying no to something. And usually when I say no to something, like a plan, if I want to do it, I will suggest some other days that I can do it. Like if I want to be your friend, that is a behavior of mine that I try and practice. Other people might not do that and they still might want to be your friend, but that is something that I believe in. If you text me to get dinner this week and I'm not free this week, if I want to get dinner with you, I will say, but I can do these 3 dates later. Now, I don't do that all the time. Um, and sometimes I don't do it with good friends. Like if I'm invited to something specific, I'm thinking of like if I'm invited to a concert on Saturday and I can't go to the concert Saturday, I'm not going to be like, oh, but let's go to another concert this summer. I'll be like, I'm so sorry I can't do that, but like definitely want to see you soon. And maybe I'll suggest some dates, but maybe not. Maybe not. Like if we're really close friends, I'm not going to put that pressure to like constantly be suggesting new dates. I probably do that more. I probably hold myself accountable to like suggest new dates more with people who are like more casual friends. Because the closer friends, I don't feel like I have to prove to them that I'm for real, that I'm here. However, I do think there is some validity to like, I reach out once and you can't talk. Okay. I'll reach out again and you can't talk. Okay. By the third time, in my brain, I'm probably like, all right, they're either really busy and it's not personal, or it is personal and they don't like me, but I'm just going to give them some space and we'll see. And maybe a month later, if I'm still thinking about them and I miss them, like maybe I'll text again because I've given myself some space to not take it personally. But I would, I worry about these rules. Like it's fine. I'll do it twice, but it's on the third time, it's your responsibility. Sometimes I think that can cut us off from some good, meaningful relationships. But generally, I'll agree. I think it's the right thing to do, the kind thing to do, the open thing to do. Like if you've said no to someone or you haven't been available the first two times, it's on you the third time to reach out. Logan, thanks for that great video and for asking for my opinion. Okay, let's go to some of your questions. I have a friend who will never text me, and when I initiate with them, they always cap the hangout under 2 hours, but they lament that we don't see each other often. So that's one of those things I think you have to figure out. You have to ask yourself, are these under 2 hours time together? Does that feel like time well spent for me? Or am I at the point where I just feel frustrated with this friendship and I don't even know why I reach out anymore? There are lots of reasons maybe why she caps it under 2 hours. Maybe she has some social anxiety. Maybe she's got stuff going on. Maybe this is just was this a she here, or did I just give this person a gender? Yeah. You used they, so I apologize. This person, look, there's lots of reasons why they might be doing this. Sometimes there are some people who just function in much stricter schedules. I don't know. It's completely fair for that to be a frustrating personality trait to you. And rather than continue to reach out to them and be annoyed, I would ask yourself, like, is there something in here why am I still doing this? Why am I still doing this? And if it's because under those 2 hours, you like being together, you like catching up, and you're okay with being the one who initiates, then keep doing it. But if not, then I would pull back, but pull back in a way that's less personal. Don't make it about you. Don't make it about how she's the worst friend and she's so annoying. And, I do agree that it's annoying when people like complain about not seeing you, but then they don't do anything to do it, to like make up for that. It's sort of like one of those social sayings that people just say in passing, like, oh, I'm so hungry, or it's so cold out today. Oh, we should see each other more. I can see how that could feel really ingenuine. Just because it feels ingenuine doesn't mean that it is, but you have control here. If you feel annoyed every time you reach out and hang out, then maybe stop doing it. Next question. How do I support a friend who continues to make disastrous life choices, but is a good friend? I think ask yourself, like, what about this is feeling straining for me? Because each one of us will have a different answer to that. Maybe it's feeling straining for you because she's making choices that are really morally opposed to your morals. And even though she's a good friend to you, you can't agree with what she's doing, and you're feeling some tension there. Maybe you're struggling with it because it's hard to see someone be self-destructive, and you're just dealing with guilt or sadness watching someone you love make those choices. I think getting clear for yourself on why it feels hard for you will then inform what to do about it. And in some friendships, I think it becomes completely appropriate, sometimes necessary, to say, I love you. Our friendship means everything to me. I can't support what you're doing. And I want to help you make a different choice. Like, it depends what the choice is, obviously. That could be really fucking condescending if, disastrous life choice is in the eye of the beholder, and you think something's disastrous and she doesn't, and it actually maybe isn't. It's just different. Obviously, there's a whole wide spectrum here to what a disastrous choice could be. I think identifying what the problem is for you could be really helpful, and then decide whether it's something that you need to create some distance for. Because the reality is sometimes friends will make choices that do make us create distance. And sometimes the distance is the thing that can save the friendship. Although the friendship will never be what it was in the before times, the friendship can be something new. And it might not feel as close, or it might not feel as reciprocal, or it might not feel, I don't know, it'll feel different. It could still exist because of the distance that you need to create. Next question is, what about friends that are very male-centered, as in they only talk about boy problems? If you have a friend that's very male-centered, only talks about boy problems, and you still hang out with them, I think you have to decide whether that's something you can tolerate. As we get older, people's interests change. It's normal to outgrow your friends. It's normal to outgrow some of the things that you used to talk about. It's okay if they're still wanting to talk about boys and you're not, but you have to decide whether you're going to be present for those conversations, whether you want to still invest in that relationship. For some friendships, I would encourage you to be like, okay, this is important to them, so I'm going to listen and I'm going to talk about it. And hopefully they'll also be curious and want to listen to the things that are important to me. But if they don't show any interest in your life, and it's not reciprocal in the sense of we both get to talk about stuff that we're interested in, even though the other person might not be there with, like, might not be into it also, I don't know, then I'd probably spend less time in that friendship. And maybe I'd spend less time with that person. But when I did go, because I do want to still see them and I do still want to be in their life, I would just kind of buckle up to be like, all right, tonight's going to be the night I hear about a lot of boy problems. And while it's not my favorite thing to talk about, I love this person and they still mean something to me. So I'm going to listen. You know, so many times I get questions from people, and I do this too, where it's like, what do I do about this friend who never shuts up about XYZ and never asks about me? And I'm like, it doesn't sound like you like them. So if you don't like them, stop hanging out with them. Sometimes it is that simple. Now, how to go about it might not be so simple, but like, it's okay for you to outgrow someone and then to make different choices. Next question. How do I stop being the intervention friend and allow my friends to fail and learn? Oh, I love this question because it's similar to a lot of the reciprocal friend questions that come up. Like, I'm always the planner. I'm always the one they come to for XYZ. How do I stop? Wow. How do I stop being the intervention friend? I think for one, maybe you're an intervention friend because you're a really good listener. And that's never something that you're going to be able to get rid of, but you can change the way that you jump in to save the day. So maybe a small change that could be helpful for you is like when a friend comes to you for an intervention, you could practice listening more and saying less. You could practice asking more questions instead of advising. Because what I've realized about advice in real life and being a supportive friend is like the feeling of receiving good advice is very similar to the feeling of being closely listened to. And I think that when a friend comes to you, if you ask them the right questions, they still might fail and they still might make different choices, but your role can sort of be as like a journal, or you can hold a mirror up to them. You can be a mirror that helps them understand why they're making their choices a little bit better. That's maybe where I would start. Oh, I love that question. Next question. I'm the friend a lot of friends come to when they need support, but I don't feel good at asking for support in return. Not because I don't feel like my friends would give it, but maybe I'm not as good at being vulnerable. Tips for letting friends be my support system like I am for them. Oh my gosh. I also love this question. I think it's so hard. I really relate to this. Something I've learned in my own personal life is like, previously I would identify myself as a person who's like very vulnerable and very open, and I am in lots of ways. And there are also certain things that I really don't want to accept support on, and I don't talk about, and I don't want help on, and I'm less vulnerable about than I think I would have thought. So I really relate to that, and something I've been working on is like how to let people help more or let people support more. I don't know. It's really tricky. And it's a process. So I just want to acknowledge that I do think it's hard, especially if you are someone if you're someone who's always been the one to support. I don't know. It's hard to flip the tables. If you can identify one person who kind of sees you and who you feel like when you talk with them, you sort of forget time has passed, and think of a friend in your life or a person in your life who like you just feel really comfortable with whenever you talk. You're not really aware of, when you talk to some people and you're uncomfortable or you're just not super yourself and you're like always aware of that you're going to have to say something next. You know what I mean? Think of someone who you don't feel that way with. Start with them and maybe even just broach this topic. Like something I've noticed in my life is that I'm not so comfortable asking for help. And it's really weird because I'm always so happy to help other people, but it's just something I'm aware of. And have you ever dealt with something like that? You could open up the conversation that way. And then I think you just have to fucking practice. Like when you're sad, you can be like, hey, I'm having a sad day today. And I don't really want to talk about it if you don't want to talk about it. I don't really want to talk about it, but I'm trying to get better at asking for support and just telling people what's going on. So I just wanted to tell you, thanks for being a person that I feel comfortable to share with. I think you can start that way. It's hard though. It's scary because it's being vulnerable leaves space for you to be disappointed in how people react, or disappointed in how people don't show up for you in the way that you would show up for them, or that how you want to be shown up for. It's hard. But I do think that you have to give people practice. And even if they don't get it right the first time, they might get it right the second time. And you can also tell them if there's something specific you need, and there's a person you trust, you can tell them exactly what you need. Give them the chance to show up for you. If you need a phone call, say, hey, I'm having a hard day. Do you have time to talk today? I could use a conversation with you specifically. That's probably what I would do. That is literally what I do. That is what I'm doing as I'm dealing with a very similar situation in my own life. Someone wrote, and this isn't a question, it's just a statement. I heard that listening and asking questions is one of the best qualities in friendship, but 90% of the time it is one-sided. Yes, this is an excellent example of like the letter writer was asking, how do I feel like a priority in my friendships? I think you feel like a priority by sometimes not being the priority. Like, there are plenty of times when I have a dinner with one of my close friends and the dinner is more about them. And that's okay because I know that I know that sometimes the dinner will be more about me. I think that being a good friend is about being okay with it not being about you. Now, of course, that only feels good in a relationship that is trusting and is overall, reciprocal. But I think that's absolutely true. Friendship is not 50-50 every time you get coffee, every time you get dinner, every time you speak on the phone. Sometimes it is when it's like a more casual catch up or when it's a new friend. I would agree that if you're meeting someone for the first, second, third time, it should be a little bit more of a balance. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're just going deep on one person's stuff, but hopefully they're a good conversationalist for you. Like, even if it is more focused on them, there's a difference between them talking with you about something in their life than them talking at you. And sometimes that's just like a personality mismatch. Like you might not be compatible. Like sometimes people, I think we quickly label people as like self-centered who are like lacking social cues or lacking self-awareness, who just like talk at you the whole time. And maybe frankly they are, but you two might also just not be like compatible communicators. So I think that's true. That's a really good point. Next question. I never know how to find the balance for how often to initiate plans without being overbearing, but also not letting things die, especially if the other person doesn't really reciprocate. I think one thing I want to say to you is like, in the right friendships, there is a world where for the right person, you are never overbearing. And the truth is that to some people you will be overbearing and to some people you won't. In the same way that some people might think I'm too intense and other people I'm just right. And some of this comes down to just compatibility and it isn't so personal. So much of this, guys, is coming back to like, we need to not take things so personally. It's a mix of being self-aware and wanting to make sure we're being appropriate and respectful, but also knowing that it's okay for you to be who you are. And we can get so bogged down in like, is this too much? Am I asking too much? All of that we don't do anything and we become stuck in inaction. I think that reach out 2-3 times. Maybe if somebody, I'm trying to think of what I would probably do. If I texted somebody on a Monday for plans this week and they weren't free and they didn't suggest something new, maybe in another 2 weeks I would try again. Like I wouldn't text them maybe the next week and be like, how about this week? If they didn't already suggest something, I would probably give it like 2 weeks space. I'm only saying that because I feel like maybe some specific dynamic, maybe some specific like calendar times would be helpful here. But ultimately, if someone doesn't reciprocate, if they don't reciprocate in the initiating plan and they don't reciprocate in the suggesting a new plan, I would probably stop after I try 3 times over a period of 4 months, 4 to 6 months. That's me personally. I think that's, 3 times in 4 to 6 months without them giving anything in return. I think that's an appropriate amount of time where you're not being overbearing, you're showing your interest, you're showing your flexibility, you're saying, hey, I've noticed, I know you're not literally saying this, let me be clear, but you're showing through your actions that it's okay they haven't reached out first. You're still interested in this friendship. But if after 4 to 6 months and you've reached out 3 times and they've done nothing, they've given you nothing, they're giving nothing, then I would probably stop. Someone wrote, I'm very frustrated with a friend who always talks about herself and never asks me questions. So I feel like this is similar to that other question we were talking about, where like, if you find that you just don't really like this person anymore, it is okay to spend less time with them. In certain close friendships, because the reality is sometimes people will talk about themselves and you won't care because you feel good in this friendship. If all signs are pointing to you are shifting, they don't care about the same stuff you do, it seems like they're becoming more self-centered, it's okay to back away. I can't really imagine, again, this is a personal preference. If I have a friend who we used to be close, but over maybe the course of a year, I've noticed that whenever we get together, I'm not loving the way I feel. They talk about themselves all the time. They don't seem curious in my life. I can't really imagine that I'd say, hey, I just want to talk to you about the fact that it really hurts my feelings that you haven't asked me any questions about myself. I personally wouldn't do that because my feelings, my processing and like acceptance of the situation would have happened really fast. Like I would quickly realize this friendship is changing. And then I would be deciding whether I wanted to be present for it at all or if I am okay with it dwindling off. I just personally can't imagine addressing it because I don't really see what the point is. But that's just that's my personal preference because I don't really tolerate participating in friendships where I don't feel good in them. That's my personal boundary. I don't do it. I just don't participate in friendships like that anymore. And I haven't in a long time. If you want to have more friendships in your life, like if you want to be surrounded by more and more people, then maybe you'll have different boundaries. Maybe you will want to address things with more people because abundance is important to you. It's not important to me. So I've just kind of gotten my friendships down to a point where there just aren't that many, I guess. And it's funny, I'm even saying they're not that many, but I've had people also tell me, how do you have so many close friends? And I guess abundance in friendship is in the eye of the beholder too. Someone wrote, I personally am recovering from toxic friendships and realizing how insecure they made me. It's sad. So my question is, how can we recover from toxic friendships without fully cutting them from your life? Well, I think if something is truly toxic, and we're not using that word just kind of casually, then you might not be able to. Like, if something is truly toxic, it might need to be fully cut from your life. If something is annoying, frustrating, your expectations were off, then I think if you can engage with this person on a more surface level and still find something that feels good for you or fun for you, like it's okay for someone to just be fun. It's okay now it's not okay if you hang out with them and you're sort of like laughing at them and like hanging out with them sort of becomes a good story for later. Like I probably wouldn't continue that friendship then, but if you can readjust your expectations in a way where you have some distance, emotional distance between you and the other person, that's how I think you can continue in relationships that maybe you would call toxic. But if it's truly toxic, then you probably need to cut it from your life. That's like the diagnostic criteria for something being toxic. Like if it's toxic, you don't ingest it, right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Distance though, emotional distance and literal distance might be necessary. If someone isn't really toxic, but you just need some space from them, you need to readjust those expectations, I would take some distance. And emotional distance, again, could be like, all right, I know I'm getting drinks with Hayes on Wednesday. I know that Hayes always talks about why am I using my name here? I know that Hayes always talks about wanting to lose weight. Let's say like that is the thing that your friend does that really feels toxic for you. And you've gotten to a point where you are like, okay, I know that if I hang out with Hayes and she talks about losing weight, I have to kind of create a little bit of a wall, and I'm not going to engage in the conversation. Maybe I'm not going to engage in the conversation. That's the boundary. But I love Hayes and I love everything else she brings to the table. I really shouldn't fucking be using my name for this, but I'm deep in it, so I'm just going to keep going. I love her and I love everything else she brings to the table, and I know it's not about me, and I'm making a choice that I'm going to keep hanging out with her. I know I can't change this about her, but I'm going to have some distance there. And that I know that's going to change our friendship. I know we won't be as close because there will be this thing that I'm creating distance about, but I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to continue. Like that's what's required. And to be fair, if you have like that would be if a friend can't shut the fuck up about their weight and that feels triggering for you, and you're in a place where you can't create distance around that topic, I would also understand not wanting to be with them. Like maybe that's a toxic trait to the point where you have to cut off the friendship, but you have to decide that. And you have to decide that. So that's what I'll say on that topic. Somebody wrote, I've had to stop expecting praise or thanks for things I wasn't ever asked to do. It's so hard. I love going above and beyond, but it's not always what my friend needs. I realized that, to some extent, I'm usually doing these big acts for me and not for them. Oh, I'm wearing my sweatshirt, but I have chills and I feel my eyes. Like, you know how sometimes you can feel your eyes getting a little watery underneath them? Wow. That's such a brave realization and such an important one. I think it's so important when we realize that the stuff in our life that we do that makes us sad, like sometimes isn't actually about the other people. It's about us and us trying to prove something, us trying to deal with an insecurity, us trying to feel worthy. And listen, love, you are worthy of love without doing the big over the top things. And it's hard. I'm usually doing these big acts for me and not for them. I hope somebody listening to this feels seen by that or has that sparks something for them, because gosh, once you realize that, you can start to be free from it. Oh, I'm so proud of you. Next question. It feels like therapy language has made people averse to the idea that friendships take work. Interesting. Where do I stand on that? I don't really love the phrase that friendship takes work, relationships take work. I think because I associate the word work with like a grind. And I actually don't think that relationships or friendships should feel like a grind. Like, I don't think it should feel like work. What I do think friendships require selflessness. I think friendships require curiosity. I think friendships require like flexibility. I think friendships require inconvenience. Like, being a good friend is not always convenient. Being a friend who shows reciprocity means that you do things sometimes for the other person, even when it's inconvenient for you. If you want to call that work, like, I guess maybe we're saying the same thing, but I think that in a good friendship and an enduring friendship and the kinds of friendships that I'm interested in, that stuff doesn't feel like work. It feels like intentionality. It feels like making choices to support the friendship, but it's not like, man, this friendship really drains me. It takes a lot out of me. And that might, again, just be a personal association with the word work, but I don't think that friendships should feel draining. I don't think that it's like day in and day out, I'm trying to figure out how to make this relationship work. For me, I don't think of friendships that way. I do think of them, though, as like something that has to come before me and my needs sometimes. So that's an interesting point. And about therapy speak, I agree. I think like therapy language it's hard. It makes me sort of sad sometimes, because in some ways I think therapy, like how we all talk about therapy, has kind of ruined it and has given it a bad rep. And I've had such a positive experience, but I know that it's also created so many problems. It's very complicated. Someone asked, I'm single. Is it unreasonable to ask my friends to spend time without her husband around? No, that's not unreasonable. I think that's so fucking weird, honestly. That's my gut reaction. I like really can't relate to always bringing your husband or your significant other around. Like, the times that Brian comes with me places are when we're like doing something with another couple. Like, we're getting dinner as a couple. So it's like the four of us are getting dinner and we're in a group chat. I'm never going to see one of my girlfriends who's single or in a relationship. Like, I'm never making plans with one of my girlfriends and bringing my husband. I don't really understand that. Now, could there be reasons why she does that? That makes sense. Sure. But no, I don't think that that's unreasonable. And I think next time you make plans with her, I'd say, can we have a girls' night? Maybe say something like that. And if she continues to want to bring her husband or insist that he comes, or when you ask to do something just the two of you, she says no, again, I would be asking myself, okay, can I tolerate a relationship with this person where it's always the three of us or not? That's a decision that you make. But I agree with you that that is odd, and no, your expectations are not too high. Someone asked, and this isn't really a question, but I think they just want me to elaborate on this, having expectations for your friends that are similar to those you would have for your significant other. So I think I talked about this actually in the Six Besties FAQ episode. I have some expectations for Brian, my husband, that I do not have for my friendships, for friends. But there are also expectations that I have for Brian that I also have for some of my friends. Like, there just are. The way I expect Brian to see me and understand me on certain things, I also have friendships where, because they've shown me they do, I now expect them to see me and understand me in that way as well. And it wasn't an expectation. Here's the thing, expectations are earned. We give someone expectations once they've shown us that they can meet them. I don't think that we give expectations to someone where we have no proof that they can do it. It's not fair to see a friend and be like, I expect you to understand this part of my life without having any proof that they can or they want to or they will. I think expectations are like almost like something that it's like the next level that you get into. Like, if you think of friendships as a video game, and there's different levels that I don't play video games, so maybe this isn't a great analogy, but there's different levels that you win and there's different levels that you get into, and each one there's something new that unlocks. I think expectations are the new things that unlock. I really think that they are. And for my inner circle of friends, the most precious people in my life, there are things I expect of them that I also expect of Brian, because they've both shown me that they can do it. My friends and my husband have loved me in such deep ways that I know they're capable of it. So I've come to depend on them for that. Expectations to me are also like what we can count on you for. I expect it of you because I know I can count on you for it. And it's okay if you falter sometimes, because I have other people who I can expect it from. And the only reason I have other people I can expect it from is because I've gone on this, video game journey of life with them over a long period of time. But yes, there are some things that I think I expect of Brian that I don't expect of friends. But similarly, I have things that I expect of friends that I don't necessarily expect of my husband. Someone wrote, being the planner friend isn't so bad if people respect the work you put in. And then on the topic of being a planner friend, another person wrote, as a planner of the group, one-sided friendships can feel very real. I think you have to remember that people bring their own qualities to the friendship. And if they aren't, maybe ask yourself why. Have they always been like this? Are they going through something? And determining if the friendship is worth your effort to fix if it feels broken to you. I think the planner topic is really interesting, and it comes up a lot. I can totally understand feeling resentful if you always plan and nobody seems to give a shit, or if you always plan and then people don't let you actually go through with the plan. Like, I could see how there'd be nothing more frustrating than everyone expects you to plan, you do it, but then everyone has an opinion, and that sucks. If you do it, you want to feel appreciated. You want to feel like people see the work that you did. I completely get that. I think that if you identify as a planner and you truly like doing it, if it brings joy to your life, don't let all the noise about reciprocal friendships take away the joy you feel from doing it. And maybe the people in your life are taken away from the joy of being the planner because those friends suck or they don't know how to show appreciation. But I don't think that being the planner friend has to inherently be a bad thing. I think you as the planner friend might introduce problems to your life if you are a planner and you expect everybody around you to be the planner. I don't think friendship, I would never plan a trip with friends because it's not my skill set. I would happily attend a trip with friends and I'd offer to help and I'd want to help pick the restaurants, but I'd also be very happy to go with my planner friend and let them make all the choices because I trust them and I trust their tastes, and I'd be sure to show my appreciation. And shower them with compliments about how lucky I am to have them as the planner friend. But I'm not going to be the one to plan it because it's not my skill set. That seems very stressful for me. I'd hope that we could still be friends, even though I'm never going to plan. I'm never going to do that plan. Is that fair? Maybe I would do the plan with a small group, but like planning a group trip just seems very stressful to me. But I appreciate what this person said. Like, if you are the planner and you feel resentful about it, you really have to ask yourself why you feel resentful. That's a you question. It's a you question. But again, totally want to validate you if you're someone who's always the planner and you feel frustrated because people don't respect it. I'm opening up my DMs now to see some of the longer ones. Okay, somebody wrote, how to manage when you don't want to give as much to a friendship anymore, but the other person doesn't want the friendship to change and is now upset the relationship feels one-sided. I think if a friend of yours is noticing the dynamic changing, because it is changing because you are making changes, I think it's fair to be open about what those changes are, as long as they're not like, I don't like you anymore, so I'm trying to end this friendship, which I guess if you don't like them anymore and you are trying to end the friendship and they ask you about it, maybe the best thing then is to be honest and say, I need some distance from this friendship. But I think it's important if someone does confront you about changes they see to be honest and name that those changes are real so that they don't feel like they are making stuff up, like that they don't feel crazy. So that might be like, you're right, I am texting less because the point I'm at in my life right now, I don't want to be catching up over text. I know that means that we're going to speak to each other less often. And I know that change is hard. Now that might be really harsh. Like the other friend might feel that that's harsh and maybe she won't want to be your friend anymore, but at least it's honest. It's honest and kind, I think. I know because it's honest and kind because you're acknowledging that the change is hard and you're telling them the truth. And I think that that's fair. If this person, for example, always wants to be in texting conversation with you every day, but you're trying to wind down the amount of time that you're texting, name that. And they can either evolve with you or they won't. But that's their choice. All you can do is be kind and honest about the change that they're seeing, I love what this person said. Annoyance is the price we pay for community. I think we've gotten to a point where everything seems like it has to be equal or reciprocal to be worth doing. And that feels fundamentally unattainable if we want rich, strong communities. Yes, I think there's space to ask someone to show up differently with a specific behavior. But I think it's also important to explore why we feel like things have to be even and fair all the time. Totally fucking agree. Well said. Like showing up with a specific behavior. I think that might mean, let's say you're going through, a family member is sick or you're going through a really challenging time in your life and you're kind of surprised that one of your close friends isn't checking up on you or isn't bringing it up. I use that example about illness because I think people are really fucking weird with illness and it's really hard to know what to do. And it can feel really hurtful though, when people who are close to you aren't asking about it. I think what you could do there is be like, hey, it's been really hard since X was diagnosed with this. I know it can be an uncomfortable topic, but it would be really helpful for me if you would check in every couple of weeks and see if I want to talk about it. I would say that to a close friend in the spirit of wanting this friendship to get to the next level, right? Like when illness is introduced to your life or when some challenge is introduced to your life has changed forever and your friendships are going to change forever too. And you want to invite friends who you really care about to change with you. And sometimes they need to be explicitly told. Somebody wrote, I find this dynamic being non-reciprocal friendships, I find this most noticeable in my long-distance friendships. I find myself being the only one to reach out. Friends aren't willing to travel my way when I make an effort to see them in their city. They don't make an effort to understand my life. After a while, it gets exhausting. It made me so sad because these people are dear to me, but the burnout is real. I often question, at what point in this cycle is this relationship no longer a relationship? Since to me, friendships are built on the basis of each person contributing and engaging. I mean, if your friends don't reach out, they don't travel to see you, even though you travel to see them, and they don't make an effort to understand your life, I'd say they probably aren't your friends. You're probably not in a meaningful relationship with them. But I think you know that. So the question then becomes, if they've shown me all of this, if you list off reasons why people aren't your friend, I think it's time then for you to say, okay, these relationships don't meet my criteria for relationships. And then Invest in the ones that do. Invest in the relationships that do meet the bill. Now, that's hard. And I do agree that friendships are built on the basis of each person contributing and engaging. Of course, you need to question, am I asking them to engage in a way that they're not capable of, or that isn't fair, doesn't make sense for their stage of life? Are my expectations misaligned? But ultimately, loves, like, if you find yourself listing off a list of why these people aren't your friends, and then you ask, are we still friends? I think you have your answer. And I think we all have to sometimes be a little more honest with ourselves about the proof and what we see right in front of us. And I'm going to end with one longer question that someone sent me. It's almost like a mini letter, but I feel like this story is really resonant. I feel like even with close friends, close in quotes, I don't feel seen or known. Last year, they kept asking me what I was planning for my birthday, even though I've told them more than once that I hate planning stuff, and even more so for my own birthday. Doesn't mean I don't want to be celebrated. I just don't enjoy planning and I get anxiety. But instead of knowing that about me and finding other ways to celebrate, like a message in the group chat, a card signed by the 6 of them, or just a genuine text, I felt like I got nothing on their end. I ended up telling them that I wanted to go out to dance, and 2 of them just complained incessantly when they were there. Anyway, it's just the little things that I know about other people, but I've never felt deeply known at the level by my friends, which makes it feel really one-sided and not reciprocated. Yeah, wow. I think that that's such a beautiful, eloquent, like, description of what it feels like to not be in a reciprocal friendship, what it feels like to not be prioritized. And it comes back to what we were talking about in the beginning of the episode with never the priority, the advice letter we discussed. Like, we have to, when you don't feel like the priority and when you don't feel reciprocated, I think it's really helpful to come up with an example, because then you can see, is this real? Are these people actually not seeing me, or am I maybe expecting too much of them? And I think that this person's example, like, yeah, I understand why that would make you not feel seen. You've told them that your birthday makes you anxious, you don't want to plan it, and yet they ask you what you're planning. I totally know why that would make you feel alone and lonely and misunderstood, especially on your birthday. I understand that. I see that. I feel it. And I'm sorry that happened. And I think that I think you will outgrow this moment. And I think we outgrow this moment by remembering that this thing happened around your birthday. And as you meet new people, don't let this experience make you think that there's never going to be friends who will understand your birthday. Continue to share with new people that on your birthday, you like to do something small. When you meet new people and you're talking about friendships of the past, you could even share this story. I just want you to know that you will find people, friends. You will find friends who will know this about you, and they'll be able to show up for you in the way you want to be shown up for. But it might come with age. It might come with more trial runs. It might come with new friends needing to be the one to plan the birthday once, but plan the type of birthday that you want, and then tell them that this kind of stuff is hard for you. And then they'll plan it the next time. It might still come, like, it's remembering that people aren't mind readers, and we still need to teach people how we want to be loved. But I want you to know that you will find the love in the form of friendship that you're looking for. And I understand why this one felt hard. A card signed by the 6 of them, that cards are my love language as well. And you will get that card. You will get that card, my love. Okay, I think that's it for today. Thank you for talking about this topic of reciprocal friendships with me, one-sided friendships. I hope there was something in here that you found valuable. And if you liked hanging out, I'm here every Tuesday. We got new episodes of Hello Hayes every Tuesday. You can watch it on YouTube or listen wherever you get your podcasts. Videos also on Spotify. If you like this and you listen on audio, will you do me a favor and leave it a 5-star review? That's really helpful in helping the show find new audience. And with that, I love you all. I appreciate you all, and I will see you next week. Bye.